Sean Combs, one of the most iconic names in hip-hop, might be on the verge of losing everything. A man once seen as untouchable in the industry, shaping the sound of a generation, launching global superstars, and building a billion-dollar empire, is now at the center of one of the most explosive legal scandals in music history. It started quietly, like most industry secrets do. A few whispers, some cryptic tweets, and rumors floating around Hollywood. But then, everything changed. In late 2023, singer Cassie Ventura, his former partner, filed a bombshell lawsuit. The accusations were severe, detailing a years-long pattern of manipulation and control. What made it worse? The lawsuit didn't just mention abuse, it painted a picture of a network, one that might involve others, one that, if proven true, could take down more than just Diddy. At first, the public didn't know how to react. Some said it was just another celebrity scandal. Others believed Cassie, but doubted the industry would let someone as powerful as Diddy fall. But within weeks, more lawsuits started pouring in. Dancers, assistants, former artists, all with similar stories. It was like a dam had burst, and the flood wasn't stopping. Suddenly, Diddy's name was trending, but not for a new album or business deal. The allegations had reached a boiling point. Then came the FBI raid. In March 2024, federal agents stormed his properties in Los Angeles and Miami. No warning, no press conference, just black SUVs, sealed warrants, and helicopters circling overhead. The kind of raid reserved for drug lords or traffickers, not music producers. But that was just the beginning. In the third week of the ongoing trial, the courtroom turned into a stage for chaos. Testimonies from insiders who had worked with Diddy for years shook the room. A former security team member revealed that some parties were invite-only for a reason, and not because of celebrity status. He described hidden rooms, phone lockups, and rules that made guests uncomfortable but too afraid to speak. Then came the digital trail. Previously sealed documents were made public. Encrypted messages between Diddy and unnamed contacts, mysterious flight logs tied to private jets, and timestamps that match suspicious activities from years back. The prosecution claims these aren't just coincidences, they're patterns. Journalists inside the courtroom described the atmosphere as tense and electric. Spectators gasped. The judge had to call for silence multiple times. And Diddy? He sat still, almost emotionless, flanked by his legal team and avoiding the cameras more than ever. But the most chilling part? A sealed witness who testified under anonymity. Someone close to the inner circle. Their voice distorted, their name hidden. Yet what they described matched what Cassie and others had alleged months ago. Different times, different places, same details. And just when the courtroom thought they'd seen it all, a new layer of evidence dropped like a bombshell, shifting the entire tone of the trial. It wasn't just stories or testimonies anymore. This time, it was digital, time-stamped, and nearly impossible to ignore. Investigators revealed footage from inside one of Diddy's Miami mansions. The clip showed a heavily redacted scene, faces blurred, audio muted, but certain details stood out. A woman, visibly shaken, trying to leave. A man blocking her way, and several others just watching. That footage, combined with flight records linking Diddy's jet to late-night trips and hush-hush destinations, raised even more red flags. These weren't isolated moments. They were patterns. Prosecutors argued that Diddy had created an environment where control, silence, and fear were part of the routine. Then came the phone data. Encrypted messages between Diddy and his staffers hinted at efforts to scrub names, cover tracks, and keep certain people out of the loop. One chilling message read simply, "Make sure she doesn't talk." No names, no context, but prosecutors claim they already knew who she was. Even more damning, an anonymous former assistant submitted a private journal entry through legal channels. In it, she described one night that haunted her for years. "I saw everything. I thought I'd be next," the entry read. Her identity was protected, but her words hit the courtroom like a gut punch. And outside that courtroom, another story was unfolding. One just as telling, but far more quiet. Diddy's inner circle began to vanish. Jay-Z, a longtime friend and collaborator, made no statement. He didn't speak publicly, didn't post support, didn't even like a comment. DJ Khaled, who once called Diddy family, suddenly unfollowed him. No public comment, just silence. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a shift. These weren't just industry peers, they were people who'd stood by him for decades. Now, not a word. No support, no denial, just calculated distance. Even the younger artists signed to his label began scrubbing his name from their bios. quietly unfollowing him, canceling scheduled appearances. Fans noticed. Gossip pages lit up with screenshots and speculation. Diddy's being blacklisted, some claimed. Others whispered that big names had been waiting for the right time to step away. This trial just gave them the excuse they needed. But it didn't stop with celebrities. Companies followed. Ciroc and Revolt both paused collaborations. Endorsement deals vanished. One brand even released a vague statement about re-evaluating all partnerships in light of current events. And while Diddy remained silent, the court of public opinion was growing louder. Social media was on fire. TikTok stitched together timelines, interviews, and old red carpet clips, trying to piece together what had been hiding in plain sight. Reddit threads dove deep into theories, analyzing footage frame by frame, dissecting lyrics for possible hidden meanings. YouTube creators posted hour-long breakdowns, calling it the fall of an empire. But as the evidence piled up and the silence grew louder, one question echoed across every platform. If this is what we're seeing now, what else has been hidden all these years? And what happened next would only deepen the mystery. The investigation took a darker turn when financial records were introduced into evidence. Prosecutors revealed a string of payments, large sums transferred to former employees, assistants, and even lesser-known party guests. At first glance, they looked like severance or bonuses. But once the timeline was compared to key incidents raised in the lawsuits, the narrative began to change. One payment in particular stood out. A $250,000 wire sent just days after a reported party where one of the women later filed a police complaint. The prosecution claimed these payouts were hush money, an attempt to make silence look like a business transaction. Defense attorneys pushed back, calling them standard industry practices. But jurors were already leaning in, eyebrows raised. Things escalated when a new witness stepped forward, one the public hadn't heard of until that moment, a former bodyguard. He claimed he'd been fired not for incompetence, but for knowing too much. In his testimony, he described a private trip overseas where guests were required to surrender their phones, sign NDAs, and were told by staffers that what happens here doesn't leave here. He went further, saying some guests appeared scared and that certain rooms were off limits even to security. He said he'd asked questions. Days later, he was out of a job and signed a tight confidentiality agreement, one he only broke now under court protection. And then came the evidence everyone had been waiting for. The forensic phone data that prosecutors had kept sealed was finally revealed, and it changed everything. Deleted texts recovered from backups, secret group chats among Diddy's closest staff, audio recordings stored in hidden folders. In one chilling audio clip, a man believed to be Diddy could be heard shouting, "Handle it before it gets public." Context was everything. The clip was recorded days after Cassie had first confronted him privately about her intent to leave. Prosecutors argued that it wasn't a coincidence, that it was proof of a coordinated effort to silence and suppress. The courtroom, once again, was frozen. And outside, the media frenzy reached new heights. Major news outlets began running daily segments, recapping the trial like a mini-series. TMZ had a team parked outside the courthouse. CNN aired interviews with experts breaking down the significance of the tech evidence. Even late-night talk show hosts were weighing in, some mocking, others stunned into seriousness. But perhaps the biggest shift came from the public itself. Once divided, viewers online began to rally around the victims. Old fans started returning their merchandise, boycotting his businesses, and creating viral content calling for justice. A movement formed, echoing the sentiment that no amount of fame should protect someone from consequences. And amid all this chaos, one major question loomed. Would Diddy finally break his silence? He hadn't posted on Instagram in weeks. His Twitter feed went dark. No interviews, no press releases, just silence from the man who once couldn't go a day without reminding the world of his presence. But that silence, it was about to be broken. And not in the way anyone expected. Diddy finally spoke. But not through a press conference, not even through his own social media. Instead, a carefully worded statement was read aloud by his legal team outside the courthouse. It was short, calculated, and cold. Mr. Holmes denies all allegations and intends to vigorously defend his reputation in a court of law. That was it. No apology, no emotion, just legal language. And that's when everything shifted. People were expecting a personal message, something that felt human, but what they got felt rehearsed, almost robotic. The disconnect between the mountain of accusations and his flat denial triggered a wave of backlash. Public sentiment, which was already fragile, shattered almost instantly. Shortly after, the prosecution revealed they had even more evidence. Surveillance footage from a private New York residence showed a chaotic scene: broken glass, a woman fleeing, and what appeared to be a scuffle in the background. Though the faces were blurred, prosecutors tied the date to a night mentioned in multiple victim testimonies. They claimed it showed the moment one of the survivors ran for her life. The internet exploded. News anchors called it the nail in the coffin. Memes turned serious. Even celebrities who had remained neutral began issuing soft statements, not naming Diddy directly, but expressing support for victims everywhere and zero tolerance for abuse. One statement that stood out came from Usher. "We must stand with those who've been silenced," he posted. Simple but powerful, and it was clear who he was talking about. Then came the federal charges. After months of growing public pressure, the Department of Justice stepped in, citing possible violations involving trafficking, coercion, and obstruction. Suddenly, this wasn't just about civil suits. It became a potential criminal case. If convicted, the charges could carry decades behind bars. For someone like Diddy, known for flashing wealth and power, the idea of a life behind bars wasn't just shocking, it was historic. This wasn't some tabloid rumor or Hollywood scandal. This was real. And it hit differently. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Insiders claimed Diddy had already started quietly selling assets: luxury homes, cars, even stakes in businesses. Not publicly, everything done through shell companies and discreet buyers. Was it to pay legal fees? Or was he preparing for the worst? Either way, the empire he built was crumbling. Bad Boy Records, once a powerhouse in hip-hop, was now stained by scandal. His vodka brand was under review. His Revolt TV network lost sponsorships. And his name, it no longer drew applause. It drew outrage. As the trial neared its conclusion, speculation swirled. Would a jury convict a man so famous, so rich, so powerful? Or would history repeat itself and another celebrity walk free? But one thing was clear. The curtain had been pulled back, and what the world saw couldn't be unseen. Whether Diddy ends up behind bars or not, his legacy will never be the same. The damage is done. The stories are out. And the silence? It's been replaced by truth, piece by piece, witness by witness. And if this is just the beginning, what else is waiting to come to light?